Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedback Friday. I can fix the. For those who don't know, the list, the queue of people is on the other stream that we have down there, the live stream. If you click on that, that's the official YouTube live stream, which is currently being live streamed right now. But on there, you'll see the queue as well as some information about us and general housekeeping shenanigans. But if you didn't know that's where the queue was, that's where it'd be. Welcome to Feedback Friday, everybody. We do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. PST, though Tim and I are going to have to talk about timing this in the future. We're just about to go through time change, and it gets a little bit tricky, and we're contemplating if this time is the correct moment for our target audience. So more to come on that. We provide feedback for anybody that wants to submit their portfolio or resume. Happy to talk about all of this. Caveats for you, it is being live streamed and recorded on YouTube, so it's public to the greater world. Notably, if your goal is to share a resume or any artifact that is sensitive, like it has sensitive data in there, you may want to either adjust it before showing it to us or sharing it with us, or potentially sharing something else because it is publicly accessible, right? So resumes, phone numbers is like the big one that we're keeping an eye out for. Addresses would be even worse. Beyond that, happy Halloween. Tim, what am I forgetting to say?
Guys, we are friendly designers, and we try to make this as unscary as possible. But we will ask you a couple of questions to help us understand more about you so we can give you feedback that's helpful and useful and actionable. So we might ask you, just be thinking, what do you really want to get out of today? And we will gladly help you achieve that outcome. But we don't really do a lot of roasting. We're friendly. We are trying to be supportive. And we do think that there's probably a time and a place for getting roasted, but we'd much rather collaborate with you. And so if you approach us with that spirit of collaboration, kind of work on this stuff together, we're all going to be super happy today. So let's just jump in. I think let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly, and we'll open our very first person.
We could be scary today. It's Halloween after all.
No, I'm not gonna be scary today.
No scary? Do you guys want scary? We'll just be really mean.
I think this is Ramit. I think we've talked with Ramit in the past. Ramit, welcome back. Let me invite you to the stage. And if you just want to give us the quick intro to you, and then let's dive into your stuff again.
Hello again. Hi, my name is Romit, and I'm a senior product designer. Last week, I actually reviewed my case study with the both of you and got some feedback, and I was focusing more on how can I add like a strategic value in the case study. So today I want to talk to you about that and like get some feedback on how the case study is formed, and whether do you think this is a good format for me to continue for as a future case studies.
That's great. And we've talked to you a couple of times, so I feel like I actually know most of the other context that I need. What about you, Nate? Do you have any specific questions you want to probe him about?
I don't think so. Feel free to lead the conversation as I pull up some of my notation.
Sounds great. So when we look at today, you want to review your portfolio, and you specifically are asking to see if you can turn this essentially into a template or a pattern for your other case studies. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we are seeing the strong landing page that you've always had really good section headers. And so I think that this is very strong. You do have the bright red, orange, the red that's leaning a little bit into orange color here, which is strong. You have good brand identifiers. You are targeting your outcome. So I think as far as like a hero section goes, this is very strong right here. This is very good anchoring. I'm seeing good stuff here. There's one thing I'm going to note, which is that I don't know if you can see this clearly, but there are a couple places that have slightly not white backgrounds. It's like an off-white compared to the white. I don't know if you can see that as well. But right here, this little box has a small fill color. Looks like the fill color is just slightly less than white. And then I'm also seeing it in a couple of other places, like right here. This section has a slight background color, which I like. I like it when the backgrounds are textured and they change colors. The contrast difference though between this white to this like light gray, slightly off white is so small though that I actually wonder if it is more annoying. It feels more like an error than intentional. You may want to fix this by adding like maybe a little bit of a border here, or increasing the color here, so it's just a little bit more gray or a little bit more. Looks like it's leaning towards like a red, maybe a little more red. Something that helps just the contrast between this white to this not white be a little bit higher, kind of connect a little bit better. In general, though, header, hero section, really good. Strong copywriting that you've already had. You are showcasing the UI in a way that's not invasive, but it does have a nice color happening. Appreciate that. And then we're seeing one. I think we talked about this last time too. Is that you're very good at the storytelling aspect. So we have the storytelling that's very intact, very functional here, with more UI happening. Did you add more images? I think that was something we talked about last time, right? Was the image to text ratio?
Yes. That was why my one of the goals that I wanted to merge the problem statements better. So my focus was
I
adding more
recognize this
images.
image here, and I think this is a way better positioning of this image. I think this is way better storytelling than it used to be. So this is a win right here. Moving this down here, a lot more successful. This is live, right? Have you been tracking maybe the change in performance here, like the bounce rate?
So actually I didn't apply a lot because I mean, this is my first case study that I have made it live. I still need to work on 3 case studies. I just got an email from a kind of a headhunter. So I feel like there's something something better going on with my case studies. So that's where I'm kind of now leaning towards that. Okay, whether the structure, the length is good or not, so that I can make it less bounce rated.
All right. Well, Nate, maybe you've been looking at this, but as I'm scanning through it, I'm seeing a lot of things that I like a lot. And maybe one thing I am noticing now that I say this out loud, now that I've said everything's great, is maybe just your margin alignment. You can kind of see that some of your things have they are aligning, looks like 290 from the side. On this one, you can see how it kind of has like a good alignment, but then our alignment is failing for some of these other images, and some other images are kind of going out of that alignment box. Same thing here. I think it's okay to indent. Some of these images. Like this is not a big deal. Going from text to indent kind of adds a little bit of emphasis, almost like a quote block, especially when you do a big chunk of it like this. It kind of helps it feel sectioned. But I definitely would be worried about how many of these poke out of that indentation. And that might be worth kind of addressing. And then, cause especially down here, we have like text that's part of that. That's like not following the indent, where maybe that's something to think about. But otherwise, I'm mostly seeing a lot of stuff that I like, especially I think Nate had mentioned the process and like the storytelling in terms of like, how did you accomplish things? And I do like now that you have these sections that are very bold, very loud in a good way, not like a overbearing way, about like strategy and your research ideation process in here. I will say maybe this reflection section, everything inside of your portfolio here feels very polished. Like this is like, I think this is probably golden ratio text right here. You have, it's like a nice emphasis, and then you have very good contrast between these headers to the body. And then you kind of get into these sections, and maybe these feel a little bit more basic. And it's okay if they are basic, but if you wanted to improve that, maybe making these feel a little bit more refined and a little bit more like with the same level of like really good intentionality and design here. This balance is so strong. Applying some things that help this feel balanced as well might be a good level up. But honestly, I'm not really seeing a lot of room for like critical improvement, other than again, some places just the background color of this white competing with the slightly off white, which you can see right here. This is white, and then this one is slightly, if I can click into it, wow, slightly not white versus white. That difference is so subtle that it feels like it may have been a mistake. It maybe wasn't, but just something to keep in mind.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Yes, I actually kind of am struggling with the ratio part, because like I have this concern that the images that I have added, first of all, that will be more pixelated. Like it I won't be able to show the artifact properly. And I think what I'm also hearing is that I think the length of the case study is fine, because that was like one of my concern. Do you think like the reflection section like supposed to be like organized at the after the solution, which is like way at the top? I have that one question. And second question is that like I have two other case study. One is for design system, and another one is similar to this, but I don't have access to all the designs, and they were not that polished because of the time constraint and like the design system that they gave us. So uh, do you generally go with any strategy to um, make the design even better, or the more focused towards strategy than the design?
When it comes to getting attention, and Nate, is the echo on my side? Am I the echo that you're talking about?
Yes.
If you're getting an echo, will you please let me know in the chat? I want to see if the echo is me, if I'm the problem.
I'm pretty sure it's your side, but I would never rule out my setup because I got things going on and I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know, Nate. It seems like the jury's in order.
Okay. Well, mistakes were made.
Let's all make Nate feel bad now. Boo. No. So when it comes to grabbing attention quickly, you need to do it quickly. I think that's the name of the game, right? So you need to have a good hook. And so humans scan things, right? We know this about humans. Humans don't like to read in depth. So having a hero section that's essentially operating as a TLDR. This is a great rule, by the way. If you want to write a good hero section, think of it as a TLDR. Too long, didn't read. How can I quickly get in this? So this could be so if you treat this hero section as your TLDR, you get all the essential information out there right away, and you give me a reason to want to learn more. You've done the hardest part, which is keeping me here, keeping me interested. Then your second part is establishing and making sure that you build up the credibility of these claims. And now you're showing me the evidence that these are true, that your statements are true. Here's the UI design, giving me the opportunity to visually verify and validate what's happening here. And then you are telling a story that now continues this narrative. And so you're essentially giving me the hook, giving me the proof. Now you're giving me the story. And then if I really wanted to, and I was like looking for maybe, if I was looking for someone like, say, Roman, I invite you to an interview, and I want to talk with you about stuff. Now what you can do is you say, you have this story set up here. You can walk me through the story very quickly, but you can also spend more time in depth on that interview, showing me the individual parts and actions that you took based on what my role is calling for. So maybe I'm hiring a product designer, but I need someone who's a little bit stronger in the user research. And so you can say, hey, I've done this before in the past. It was really successful, had a really good impact. And since we're talking about user research, by the way, here's the user research that I've done in the past. Here's the outcome it led to. And so the more information you include in some of these case studies, the better you allow yourself to basically appeal to the specifics of roles that you're applying to. But you should never include everything at the expense of telling a bad story. Because you're telling such a good story in this front, and the very front, the very first, like, I don't know, it's like the first fifth of the page, maybe the first quarter, it's about a quarter, right? Maybe even a third. Because you're telling such a good story in this very first third to quarter, I think it's okay that you spend more time than going into the nitty gritty and the details of everything. Because this now allows me to say, use this page as a case study to understand you more in depth, even though the human side of me has now looked at all your top stuff. If I'm using AI to help me understand or evaluate you for a role, you have all the information that explains this in greater detail that can now be attributed to you and that is attached to this project, even though you are putting it kind of towards the end, which is maybe the lower yield section. Speaking of a reflection section, though, I'll say just in terms of like good heading, if you're using this as like an H2 or an H1, you notice that this is your ideation section. Inside your ideation section, you have multiple sections. Inside your reflection section, you only have one section. So maybe I would rethink how you structure this. So either changing your reflection so all of your reflection is maybe inside of this little red box here. It's not like true. It's more like a red brick. I'd put it inside this red brick area, or maybe changing this whole section so it's a little bit stylistically differently, kind of as a footer. And then also, we know this, including some CTAs here at the bottom. If I get here to the bottom, you should reward me for getting all the way down here because I've read this, I've looked at this. You should tell me what to do next because maybe I'm interested in learning more about this. Your lessons learned also don't need to be necessarily like too on the nose. Like lesson learned, I learned a lot about turning complex things into clarity, but you can also make it more about like here's some things that happen, here's some gaps, some things I'm going to change up for next time, or even like what kind of clients would benefit from that. You can anchor this as essentially the anti-TLDR, which is the you read this, so here's the overview summary at the very end of it now. I don't know. I've been speaking for a little bit. Hopefully that makes sense or that connects for you. Do you have any questions on that? Or maybe Nate wants to veto everything I just said.
Yeah, so I think for me, yes, I agree. I have seen like some case study where they have broken down the reflection with some questions and like that has been answered as well. So I've got some ideas on that, so I'll improve it.
Yeah, I'll also say reflections are probably higher yield items for junior to maybe lower mid level roles. If you're in a senior role, the reflection section is probably a little bit less essential. Not that you shouldn't have one, or not that you should delete it, but I would keep in mind that make it short, make it sweet, and you don't need to bare your soul too big. Just big enough so people know that you're a human and that you can learn and grow. Still treat it as a section where you're still storytelling and you're reaching the outcome that you want to reach.
Got it. Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. Also, this looks very AI generated. I don't know if it was, but anytime I see the word ultimately didn't just, it did. It's like that's pretty good AI writing right there. So maybe you wrote this. I don't know. Maybe you wrote this. Maybe you didn't. I won't ask you, but you might also want to watch out for that. I think if you're going to use AI writing, use AI writing in the middle, because then you have the end and the beginning, and those are the parts that people read the most usually, and you want them to feel the most human. So make sure to bookend everything with a very good human vibe and a human feeling.
Got it. I have one last question. So my next case study, I want to reflect towards design system. And actually, there are two case studies. One is like for a mobile app and design system. And in design system, my role was more into facilitator and like provide a larger vision, like coming up with metrics and setting up storybook and analytics and working with dev teams to bridge the gap about how the design system can operate. More of like a strategist role first, then being an executioner. So I just wanted to know like what are the few pointers that I should be thinking of when presenting a case study. My focus wasn't on accessibility side, So would that kind of become a concern when I'm going to present my case study?
What say you, Nate?
I love talking about design systems. Hello, by the way. Tim's been rocking this call. I haven't had much to say. Tell me how to pronounce your name again.
It's Romit.
Romit.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I recall talking with you last week. And then when you first hopped on, I didn't grab my notation quickly enough. What was the role you were targeting?
Senior product designer role.
A senior product designer role. Got it. Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Design systems. Design systems have a whole lot of complexity and capability. Now, what's interesting about design, by definition, is that we are solving problems with design. That's what differentiates us from art. So, in regard to talking about design systems or accessibility in your case, I care less about the motivations. How do I describe this? I care less about your ability to talk about all the feasibility of the design system and more about the problems that you're trying to solve along the way. Design systems don't need accessibility. That would be a solution to a particular problem that you're attempting to solve, right? So I care more about what problems you're trying to solve and why the design system is a solution to that. As you're describing that case study, you should talk about what those problems are and why the design system solves that friction point for you. Accessibility doesn't have to be one of those things. How's that sounding? Is that sounding applicable to your current environment?
Yes, it is. So like I actually did a buy-in approach where previous stakeholders weren't interested, but I made them interested, and I had a lot of metrics involved. I connected the dots with tools, um, and basically did a lot of strategy work and execution work. So but accessibility wasn't one of them, and I see like a lot of LinkedIn posts talking about it, so I was kind of concerned that whether that can be a uh, like holding factor.
I don't think it's a friction point if it's something you don't want to talk about. If somebody else looks at that and says, hey, I require accessibility for the design role that I am hiring for, then they may look for that in your portfolio. But if they don't see it, I don't think it's a large enough friction point to like not give you a call if that's what you're concerned with.
Yes, that's the concern that I had mostly. Thank you for answering that. The last question, sorry, I said that again, but the last question is for mobile apps. Like I made a mobile app which was like 0 to 1, and but like again, that was just a comprehensive process where it was more focused towards design, but it was like less process oriented. Um, didn't have like a lot of research based or things. So just wanted to check like what is your advice on building case study for such situations?
I love this question because it comes from, I think I perceive it as coming from a place of there is a proper methodology of UX design, and the project that I work on didn't follow it fully. Research, for example, is a common one. Oh, we didn't do research, therefore we didn't fully do UX design. Is that sounding like your mindset?
Yes, that is exactly right. Because like when I joined, I was directly we just started off like basic brief about who the persona is, and there was just more of iterations and in designs and more of like mood boarding because I was working in a startup. So that's where I'm trying to understand is like how to bring attention to the recruiter or hiring manager about this case study.
Yeah, this is a cool question. This is a fun question. There's so many things I want to talk about here, and I'm trying to parse how to begin the conversation. Every organization is unique. Every organization has different constraints and feasibilities by which they go about solving problems. There are different methodologies and formulas by which organizations go about solving these problems. The one that we're most familiar with tends to lean more toward a waterfall understanding of product development. And in a waterfall development cycle, one does discovery and research up front. There are other formulas out there. There are other frameworks by which people and organizations solve effort. Agile, for example, being the large competitor to waterfall, doesn't prioritize research up front. So where I'm going with this is you not having done research up front is a symptom of the work environment that you're in because you're solving a problem based on the constraints of that organization. In an agile format, we would do research after. We would do high iterations, then we'd test and research if those iterations are functional. So in your case study, not having done research up front isn't a negative thing. It's a descriptor of the work environment that you're in, and that's what needs to be described in your story. How is that sounding? Is that making sense?
Yes. So basically, I don't have to make up stuff, right? Like I can just be honest on those fronts. Like that was because that was like a pressing problem because of which I haven't like worked on that case study yet.
Yeah, there is nothing in an organization, there's nothing more persuasive than working software. In more iterative agile environments, the goal is to publish software quickly, learn fast, and then discover on how those iterations have failed for the ability to pivot quickly. That's a feature in an agile environment. So feel free to talk about that. Feel free to talk about, in some environments, we would do research more quickly, but based on the constraints of this project, we reprioritize getting published software out more quickly so we could then discover after. That's a great frame of reference for your story.
Amazing. Thank you so much for answering all the questions.
Yeah, I'd also
Tim
say
did
like
Tim did all of the talking when it comes to your case study. I just wanted to mention, your case study is great. I have nothing else to mention here. I think your titles are fantastic at telling the story. There's really not much on my side that's interesting to talk about. Tim's already added the value.
just gonna say, make sure to include this for everyone. Make sure to include somewhere in your project on a footer something that directly attributes work to you, just to give yourself that like little bit of protection there. Just let people know that you own it. The way that this works is that you need to put put who you are as a sole proprietor. So it could be your first name, last name, do JavaScript style. First name, last name. Well, I guess JavaScript style is actually camel case. But do make sure to include this and then put the year that the original work was first submitted. So if you've been working on this case study since maybe 2023, you'd put 2023 on here. And then you may need to also include, some states will have you include updated on this date. But just a thing to look into. You can include at the bottom. It's just like a little nice little anchor and lets people know that you're serious and real and that you own that work.
Yeah, that's a fantastic advice. Actually, I didn't think about it.
Yeah. Ramit, I am really glad we were able to talk today. I actually have one question for you before we go on. And I know we're slightly over for you, but I noticed belatedly that when I'm in your case study, there's a moment when your navigation changes. I was curious if you could tell me more about why your navigation is changing here.
Yes, it is an intentional approach. I actually need to work on the animation. But so I actually looked into your portfolio and I saw that like when you go down to the process, it directly gets sticky. And that was like kind of one inspiration. But the other thing was that as I was working on the process and learning, I was kind of concerned that it might get long. So people might get lost. And just for that one reason, I thought that I should break it down to two parts, because if let's say they want to navigate between process, they can, or they can just scroll back up when they click on the process and learning. So those were that was a primary reason. I still have to work on some micro interaction, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that.
That sounds good. I would caution, of course, you got to follow your heart. and what the users say. So more than your heart, what the users say. I would caution on changing the navigation. I think if you're going to add navigation, that's a good way to go. I wouldn't remove or alter main navigation. So if you wanted to introduce a secondary navigation bar or something else here, I think that's a good way to go. I would just be really careful about changing your main navigation to a secondary navigation system.
Okay, that's a great advice. I can make that change quickly. Again, thank you so much for the comprehensive review.
Really appreciate the time. Great talking with you again.
Likewise.
Next on the list, Tim, we're looking at Sansology. See if I can find them down in the chat, or at least you can beat me to it. If you're out there, Sansology, feel free to raise your hand or invite yourself to. There it is.
Just invited them. Yep.
Well done. Hey, I figured out what the echo is. It's a goofy one. Oh, look at that. It's a little Tim.
Yes, Little Tim. My daughter, famously known as Little Tim. Hey, if you want to, Sansology, if you want to introduce yourself, let us know what to call you. Let us know a little bit about what kind of designer you are, what your market is, and then specialties or things that set you apart or help you kind of choose your niche.
Right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. My name is Thanjila. I'm a recent grad from NC State, and I'm a product designer, or at least I'm looking for product design roles. And I'd ideally like to work in anything that's like relating to a consumer or has to do with a user. And like, I don't want to work in B2B SaaS or making dashboards. As long as I'm working for like a company that is like more design focused and creates like interesting products, I would be interested in working for them.
All right. That's great. And then you graduated 6 months ago, a couple months ago.
Yeah,
How long ago?
Okay. Like last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Like what a monumental thing to have accomplished that goes super underappreciated in how crazy the market is right now.
Yeah, it's really crazy right now.
When we look at this today, do you want us to focus on there's a couple different ways to do this. Would you like us to focus on the content, the UI, maybe the technical side, and then do you want us to focus on your landing page or a case study?
I'm not sure.
Maybe more. Okay, yeah. If you're not sure, especially, do you know currently where your funnel problem is? So there's top of funnel, there's mid funnel, and then there's end of funnel. And when you're talking about this, like, do you know if you're having challenges with people getting to your website, like you're sending out resumes and people aren't looking at you, or are people coming to your website but they're not choosing you?
So far, like either, because I'll be honest, I don't have a whole lot of experience, so oftentimes I do get weeded out in the like the resume portion, but then for when they like actually look at my website, they don't spend too much time looking at it. So I'm like trying to figure out a way that I could possibly make up for my lack of like experience with like the quality of my work or the case studies I have.
Okay. And then you're using Framer, which I love and adore. I will love and adore all Framer people. If you're using Framer, guys, I'm your person. Nate, what are you thinking? What are you thinking here?
I'm thinking we probably do a quick overview of the website, but focus on a case study if possible. Is that where your brain's at?
I think it's a great idea. Do you also want to explain the hiring process so that way we can contextualize how we give our feedback today.
Yeah, sure. So when building a portfolio for product design, there are typically three main target audiences that we're looking to strive for. Target audience number one is the recruiter. Target audience number two is the hiring manager. Target audience number three are future peers. With the first target audience in mind, the recruiter, these are folks that don't typically have a deep understanding of what the job description is or what the skill set entails. So these are folks that are doing a lot of keyword matching from that of the job description to that of your portfolio, looking for a lot of key phrase matching. So we can assist with making recruiters happy by utilizing a lot of the verbiage that they're looking for, really, without them knowing that they're not going to understand the story and the process that you're utilizing. So we'll take a look at that in your case study. The hiring manager, this is the person that's primarily interested in your case study and the process by which you solve problems. And then we've got the future peers, and they're primarily interested in who you are as an individual. Are you fun to work with? Can I hang out with you with a cubicle wall shared between us for 8 hours and it will make my life miserable? That sort of stuff, right? So those are the three target audiences. Each of them have sort of unique things they're looking for in your portfolio. So as Tim and I take a look at your portfolio, we have those three mindsets in mind with the goal of solving their problems. Homepage wise, recruiters just want to see your value prop at the top. They want to look for those keywords to identify that you are in fact relevant to the job description. And we can do that in a couple of ways. So the value prop at the top, we may want to throw a title in there and we may want to throw a target in there. Ideally, this would describe who you are and what's your goal in getting hired. So for example, my value prop, which is a little light in the definition of value prop, but it says something like, I'm a product designer. I'm trying to fix the American healthcare system. So exactly who I am and what industry I'm attempting to target. There's other strategy in that sentence as well, despite a value prop. But for you, that's the main purpose. So in your value prop here at the top, we could potentially add some of that in. So it says design products and experiences that make everyday tasks easier and fun. A recruiter may not know what that means. Like they may toss you in the graphic design category for that. So we could get more specific if you were feeling fancy. And then you mentioned that you have a target. It sounds like, at least a little bit, it sounds like you're targeting B2C, where there is a consumer at the end of the day, as opposed to employee software. Is that sounding right to you?
Yeah, that's right.
Are you able to narrow the scope? B2C
just
is
real
the
quick.
majority.
Didn't you say you don't want to do SaaS B2B?
Yes, I'm not that super interested in B2C.
But the SaaS part specifically.
Yeah. I guess like dashboards or anything like more internal. Like I could do it, but that's not something I have a whole lot of experience with, so I'm not like targeting it, if that makes sense.
I'll speak to that in a moment once Nate's done.
Tim's got thoughts. I'm seeing his face. He wants to say something. Cool. So we could increase the value prop, add the position in there, and add the target in there. Part of why I'm trying to talk about the target is it's broad in nature, which comes with advantages and disadvantages. The advantage being it doesn't seclude you from applying for a myriad of positions. The disadvantage being you are weaker than other candidates who are already applying for those positions. So you get more job descriptions you can apply for, but less likely to get those positions. Pros and cons, right? Moving on from the value, but is that making sense so far? I can summarize that if that's helpful.
Yeah, it's making sense.
All right, great. Beyond that, the recruiter's going to take a look at your value prop, then they want to scroll down and they want to take a look at a case study. Tim, before we move on to a case study, did you want to talk about something?
Yes. Okay. So, Thanjila, I know you have stated your preferences, but I have to let you know that there are basically two rules when it comes to targeting yes, we have a new reviewer. When it comes to targeting people, is that the first impression you make informs everyone what kind of work and who you want to work for. And SaaS companies are bold. They're looking for big. They're looking for fun. They're looking for basically like showcasing great technical skill. Everyone who's not SaaS, though, is looking for more grounded, more corporate, more boring. So those are basically the categories you can go. You can go for bold and kind of innovative, or you can go for boring. I'm looking at yours. It does not look boring. So when I look at your website, I immediately am under the impression that what you're looking at is a SaaS role. You said, though, you really don't want to work for SaaS. And I'm curious if you actually know what SaaS roles look like, or if there's an impression of SaaS that's making you not want to work for SaaS. Because I think a lot of designers actually are going to be doing SaaS type work, especially since you are targeting, you have digital design here, you have LinkedIn, which is SaaS, and then you've got other SaaS stuff here. Well, kind of website looking stuff here. Can you just explain more to that so we can figure out maybe if there's a type of SaaS you're looking for, or if your impression of SaaS is maybe off? And this will dramatically change the kind of context work that we'll do with you as we look at a case study.
I think my impression of SaaS is like more corporate. I guess to be more specific, something like a product that I'd be more interested in is like, I don't know, something like Notion. Like that's about like as like Notion or Discord, those kinds of platforms, because I know that a lot of SaaS companies can have like personality. I just want to make sure I work for ones that do have personalities and not ones that are like super corporate. They only use gray and like maybe one other color, and just like a really basic font, that kind of thing.
I mean, I think my impression is that it's the other way around, that SaaS companies are a lot more likely to not be constrained there. Am I speaking out of turn here, Nate? What do you think?
I don't think so. I think there's a definition hurdle here. So when Tim and I talk about SaaS, we're talking about software that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes has like a subscription model to it. That's a good way to like narrow down what applications realm in the SaaS world. And what you're describing to me, like Discord and what was the other one you mentioned? Notion. These are both pretty solid in the SaaS category. So I'm hearing that you don't fear SaaS, you fear like boring corporate life. Is that sounding right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. Boring corporate life is my gig. Big fan of it, but not everyone's cup of tea. So I totally understand.
Yeah, boring corporate life is usually associated with non-pure SaaS, or very certain, like, I don't know what the word is called for it, like over performance culture SaaS, like Windsurf maybe, or even Cursor, where it's like something that is SaaS, but they're also so unhealthy and toxic that it's kind of leaning into a bad way. I think you're going to be okay there. As Nate said, I think so. One, CJ, I think you should open your definition up to being SaaS being okay. I think SaaS is probably where almost all designers are going to end up, unless you want to go for local hires. If you're looking for something locally, then you're going to find people who are not hiring in a SaaS level role, but pretty much everyone who's hiring is in some sense software as a service, or at least they're hiring designers for their software portion of the service, even if it's not a main offering. For example, insurance is not your traditional software as a service, not surface, but at the same time, they hire UX designers to work on their online interfaces, which is their internal side. And that stuff tends to be boring because it needs to be very plain, very definitional. So if you want to avoid working on internal, boring corporate stuff, you're probably actually leaning more into that SaaS kind of people and kind of working on these brands that are way more open-minded to creativity and faster turnaround of ideas and kind of trying to be modern and innovative. And that being the case, you've got to add more here. Now, when people add, so you have to also know your positioning, your marketing, right? So if I land in here, my first impression of your website is we have this very thin vector here, then vector item here. I don't know what that means. But we're also seeing a whole bunch of different styles of typography. So we've got typography that's italic. We've got vector width here. We've got a smaller all caps font over here. We've got an icon, which is a different vector weight from this icon over here. Now we're seeing this title header, and then we've got something over here. My suggestion for you is to unify these so they feel more consistent. It's okay to have multiple header types, but the contrast between them should be strong enough that on a page, each one gets its own attention. And the contrast difference between here and here is a little too small. I would recommend maybe either decreasing this in size, increasing this in size, which for SaaS, big headlines work really, really well. And then also improving your logo here so that the width of it is a little bit better performing.
Tim, I'm looking at the clock. I'd love to dive into a case study unless you have more to describe on the homepage.
I do want to talk about this feature here as well. I deleted this feature so I wouldn't look at it, but we need to come back to it. Anytime you add animation has basically one purpose when it comes to portfolios, which is to highlight and create a little bit of noise that is helpful to the user. But anything that moves, people are going to look at. And I just want to clarify that the most important thing for me to look at is definitely not a label that says scroll to see featured work. That's not what I want to do at all. What I'd rather do is have the little prompt of these images are cut off here at the bottom of the page. So I'm prompted to scroll down, which I already know to do. But I also need to read you. I need this context here. And so I think adding animation that makes me look down at the bottom very first thing, missing your value proposition, is probably a disservice. Now, your value proposition right here, as Nate said, is not very strong right now. It's missing some key things that he highlighted to you. So if you add those things, improve this section so it's stronger, this is going to be much more valuable to look at and for people to ingest as a context before they look down here, because now they know your specialties and things. If you do want to add some animation, just make sure that animation serves a purpose, is intentional, and adds value to people when they're looking at things.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Tim mentioned the animation side. I just think it's worth mentioning that when it comes to the introduction of HTML on the internet, marquee was one of the very first tags to be introduced into coding, along with like the blink tag. It happens to be a pattern that's also reminiscent of a very outdated, old-fashioned web design trend. One extra thing going against you there with the marquee. We ready to talk about case study? Heck yeah. Case study. You're doing a lot of things really well here. So recruiter, that housekeeping stuff at the very top, timeline, role, team, skills. That's that key phrase matching that a recruiter is looking for. So excellent job there. And then I also love to note that your storytelling, specifically in your title tags, fantastic. This looks familiar to me. Have we talked about this in the past?
Which part?
This case study before.
No, this is my first time submitting this portfolio.
Cool. It's great. I love the storytelling in your title tags. Getting dressed is more than routine. It's a daily act of self-expression. The solution, a wardrobe tracker with an AI assistant to help create outfits. Why is difficult getting dressed? So if one ignores all of your content and just reads the titles, they are still getting a lot of the story that you're attempting to describe. So well done there. That's fantastic. Your text to image ratio is leaning toward text. There's an opportunity to add more, I don't want to say imagery, but like visual differentiation away from text. Not to suggest you should remove text, but to potentially finesse the text into a more visual presentation format. Other than that, one of the things Tim and I like to do on these calls is we don't want to talk about all the things you could potentially fix. Instead, what we want to talk about are what are the most important things the most important next steps you should take. I don't see a lot of most important next steps. You are doing all the things well, and any of the rest of the feedback I have is starting to dive into like subjective bias, as in, I think this could be better. I think the aesthetic of this could be nicer, and it's just not objective anymore. So happy to continue down that path, but from my perspective, I'm going to let Tim take over if he has more reasonable, objective critique. I think you're doing a fantastic job.
I think that your text might be a little too small. Now we've talked about, I don't know if you've listened to us talk before in the past, but there is this magic trick called the Senior Designer Portfolio Toolbox, which is basically use tiny text and use inordinate amounts of white space. And it's terrible for your accessibility and it's terrible for like reading, but for some reason it communicates like the design aesthetic. I think that as far as like a visual pass goes, visuals are all here. The layout is here. I'm seeing all the sections that I'm hoping to see, with the exception of maybe a little bit more impact. I'm not seeing a ton of like your impact or your outcomes being highlighted a little bit earlier, even though you do have a strong section here. You have designing an app to make getting dressed easier and more intentional. You could outline maybe the user benefit a little bit more clearly here. I think that I do understand though that it's kind of hard to say like, yeah, designing an app to make getting dressed easier, more intentional, to save time in your day, and therefore go do more corporate grind, is probably like not like the strongest choice of focusing on outcome. But just remembering that the product that you want to sell on this page is you. And I'm seeing it talk a lot about the problem. I'm seeing it talk a lot about Ensemble. I would look for more of you in here, and your value is manifest in the success of this project. So if you can show that this is a good problem and that you have solved the problem very effectively because you have this evidence, that is selling you. So you are using this by proxy to basically push yourself forward. So that is one thing to keep in mind throughout this. But I don't think I have any super strong feedback other than you're using an H3 tag before an H2 tag. So this will probably perform bad on your SEO if you wanted this to show up in SEO, which I think you should. But that's kind of minor meat potatoes in terms of like the actual content here. You do have a lot of content that's hidden behind carousels, and I don't know if this information is essential if you haven't heard already, but carousels are really bad for SEO. They're also really bad for getting content surfaced to the users. If there's anything of value in these carousels or anything that you think really makes the case, you're preventing people from finding it because it's hidden in carousels. Maybe it is extraneous and you don't actually care about this second slide or the third slide here. And that's an intentional choice that you can make, but just, it's a trade-off to keep in mind. Maybe a couple of areas where the spacing is a little bit weird, competitive to table, persona, text, images here. But other than that, I would say this is probably this is probably a very strong place to start. And everything else that we could offer would kind of get into this realm of how do we help you target a very, very specific niche. And yeah, I think that's enough talking from me. What do you think, Nate?
I don't have any other value to add. How are you feeling? Do you feel like you've got some actionables that you can take home with you?
Yeah, so I guess so far I have like written down to like kind of work on the adding like or improving the value prop in the on the homepage, and then kind of figuring out like the animations. So instead of it being having people look at like the little marquee, instead have it either have like the covers of the case studies be animated or just reduce the amount of animation overall. And then for the case study, just adding more visuals or turning the text into more like visual components.
Yeah, I think you're killing it. I'm typing in the chat, there's a link to our YouTube channel. So everything that we've talked about is recorded on there. Feel free to go back and take a look. I hear you're writing notes. You don't have to. We've got the video as well.
I think write notes are pretty cool. So I write notes for everything.
It is good for memorization, writing notes.
Yes, I want to memorize this stream for sure, 100%. I would say if you can, I would recommend adding. You have a good like if you're improving some of these statements here. Remember that every page should kind of have this like TLDR type like header section, which is where you get to say like, hey, if you didn't read this page, I'm at least surfacing the most important things to you, and then I'm showing you a visual that validates that. And so I would be looking for, I think I kind of mentioned in passing, but like this is not like a super strong thing in terms of like outlining your outcomes. So you could use a subheader here to kind of clarify what those outcomes are a little bit more. Otherwise, great use here. I do see that you have resisted the infamous urge to use every single framer feature possible, which means you haven't done any scroll jacking. Thank you. Points right away for not using the scroll jacking. I do see that you're using a custom cursor. Just keep in mind that may be a deterrent for some people in establishing yourself as professional. You do have some hover states that are actually anti-accessibility. So you see that this is higher contrast on the background. I hover on it, it's lower contrast on the background. You may want to flip that. So that way you go up in contrast when you hover on things. That's typically a good pattern, is that when you hover on something, it becomes easier to see rather than harder to see. Otherwise though, there's a lot of great stuff here. It's just going to be about attaching. Have you already connected Google Search Console to your webpage?
I don't think I have.
Okay, that's a good place to go. So Google Search Console and also Bing Webmasters. If you attach those, you can start tracking. And there's also a tool called Posthog. It's free. They have a free thing, and it also integrates with Framer very nicely. Essentially, what it does is it tracks people who come to your website through a cookie, and then you can see where people are, and this will help you track your bounces. So essentially, maybe people are on your website and you see that their mouse kind of goes to a certain place, or they click on something, and it like will help you just kind of keep track of like the actual specifics of what's not working or what is working, which can be helpful.
Good to know.
Excellent. Well, pleasure talking with you. Really appreciate you hopping on the stage with us.
Thank you for all the help.
Tim, next on the list, we have Thanjila, who I believe we've talked with before. Am I wrong about that?
I
Hi.
think we have briefly talked with Thanjila.
Yeah, you guys
Hi,
looked at my
Thanjila.
resume before. Hi.
Fantastic.
Yeah, today I finished my first case study, or it's still kind of a work in progress because I'm new to Webflow and I was building it using the Arc browser, and then I turned off like the sidebar and realized everything was slightly aligned to the left more than usual. And yeah, today I'd just like you to like scroll down a little bit and look at the case study, the AI powered onboarding autofill. Yeah.
It's right here. Arc browser, by the way. My heart's with you. We are kindred spirits automatically.
Yeah, yeah, when you open it, you might have to like yeah, everything's a little bit to the left. I'm still trying to figure out how to fix that. I'd like you to I'd like advice on like whether it makes sense, whether like the storytelling makes sense. And if it's too long, because I kind of like packed a lot of like of my process into it, but I don't know if it's too long. And because this is like my first like of like professional like experience with like doing UX UI for a startup, I'd really like to use this case study to like get another internship and like get more experience. Yeah.
Thanjila, I missed the title you were looking to target. Did you say that?
UX UI design internship. Honestly, like the startup experience was interesting, but I'd really like to be in like a bigger corporate environment when there's like other UX designers who I can like actually collaborate with. But other than that, I don't have like a focus right now because I'm like, this is like one of my only experiences. I just like want to like get a taste of other industries too.
Am I hearing you're looking to target boring corporate SaaS products?
I can, yeah, like try it. Like I can't knock it until I tried it.
That's my wheelhouse. That was a joke from the previous, but totally understand. Tim, I have scrolled through this case study, seen a lot of cool things. Did you have a place you wanted to start? You're muted. Silly Tim.
Silly me. Humorously, I say this humorously. I think that your biggest challenge here is that you've not used Framer. I just saying that humorously. I'm really glad to see that you've done a lot of work with this. It looks well set up. Like at
Tim
a very
thought you folks were kindred spirits until he realized you weren't using Framer, and now you're dead to him.
You can all be kindred spirits to me, guys. There's lots of room. There's lots of room for kindred spirits. I think when I'm scrolling through this, I'm seeing a lot of the things that I'm looking for. I suspect that as we get through this, it's going to be mostly about maybe the actual copywriting and focusing on certain outcomes and setting it up in a way that favors you. I know you said you'd like to target internships. I might actually suggest not targeting internships and targeting junior level roles and accepting internships if internships comes your way. Would that be fair to suggest to you?
I'm a junior in college, so like I wouldn't be able to like work full time if I even got in.
Okay. Well, cool. I guess that actually makes a lot of sense. That's a perfectly
That's a
valid
reasonable
reason.
argument.
Yeah, that's not imposter syndrome. That is actually like life circumstances. Okay. So when we're looking at, remember, one of the first things you want to land on is a TLDR type header page. And this is just someone recently said this and it's just stuck in my brain. So that's how I describe hero sections now. But you want to set up the story in a way that one will tell me what I need to know about your web page if I bounce off of your web page super quick. So that's like function number one. Function number two, though, is that it needs to prime me to look at the page, which is you should tell me just enough that if I was to scroll, I understand what I'm looking at next. I am seeing right away you have framed agentic AI-powered onboarding to speed up gym platform migration. And so you're framing a product and a benefit. And that's not a bad way to have set this up. There are maybe some slightly stronger ways. Nate can probably wordsmith this a little bit better than I can right now. I might recommend switching the order though. So you start with the benefit, then talking about the product. Because you are selling yourself, not the product. And so if you're I'm selling you a benefit. I will speed up your platform migration. So in fact, what I might actually say is speeding up platform migration, which is a benefit that a lot of people want through a. Sorry, I've got to move this now. I'm hamstring myself. But you might want to say like instead of product benefit, you might want to say speeding up platform migration through agentic AI, through agentic powered onboarding. I know how to spell. English is my first language. Yes. And then you outline your audience. Gym owners for gym owners, gym founders, and owners. Right. So you're now saying your benefit, like your value is that you can speed up platform migration. This is generic enough now that no matter who I was, I can see the value in here. This is like platform agnostic, but then you're clarifying you're doing this through a certain thing that you've done. So here's the tool, the process. And then you're outlining your very specific case study. So this is the specific niche while I'm here, and this primes me to say, oh yeah, this is for a gym, by the way. And then people sometimes want to put UX case study and stuff. I think this is a cop out. I think this is how you tell people, by the way, don't take it seriously. And to that I say, it's a very real project. You did actual work for this, right? This is a real, like, it obviously is real because I'm looking at it. Like, you did this. You did this thing. So you do not need to tell me it's not real. Just accept that it is real. And you don't need to lie, right? You don't need to say, like, I was paid to do this or I was hired in a big corporate. You don't need to say that at all. But you also don't need to tell me it's just a thought. It's just a theory. You can just own it. Just own it as a very real project. That's my little 2 cents on your little section here. If you want to include, sometimes you can include things like process steps. So like a UX research, maybe you did some of that. I don't know. Maybe you did some ideation, right? You can do like some subheader things that just tell me maybe some of the things I can expect when I go into this, that kind of outline value in your thought process. You can also outline here like 65. Where's the percent button? Improvement in migration speeds. I don't know, something here that's outcome related that's specific to this. But you can also show the proof here. So these are some good. Those are just my early suggestions for you.
Okay.
Any questions on that? Maybe you disagree with that wildly? I don't know.
This so like the very real project thing. This was as my like summer internship. So should I say anything about that? Like I worked during the summer to do this for like I was working directly for OpenGym, like rather than it being a concept.
On your resume, I think you can include in parentheses internship because it's a resume and that's a little bit more valuable. I think though that you do not need to include a label of any kind here.
Okay.
If you want to put maybe a timeline, you could kind of do that. You could say like, and I'm not suggesting this, but if you felt compelled to, you could do like 3-week project or something like that. I don't think this is the ideal way to do this, but you could do something like that. I don't think you need it though. I might be wrong on that though, because if you're looking specifically for internships, maybe it would be beneficial to include internship in here, and then people will be like, oh yeah, you're a great intern. Because Nate has this whole thing about being overqualified for roles. And if someone perceived that this was such a good project that you're overqualified for their internship, that could be a problem, I guess. What do you think, Nate?
I don't know, Tim. So what Tim is describing is if one is hired and they're overqualified for a role, the statistical chance of them staying within that role for a long period of time is low. Therefore, organizations are incentivized to not hire overqualified candidates because training is costly, it takes time, and they will likely not stay. Internships are a little different. Like if one's goal is to hire an intern, I feel like one's goal would be, I want to hire the best possible intern because they're locked in for our 3-month contract or whatever it is. We know they're not transitioning because they still have an academia to work through. So that's where my mindset's currently at. I don't know that I mind an internship being overqualified. Chat, feel free to argue with me on that. Is there a variable I'm not thinking of there? Love to read about that. Anyway, all that said, I don't mind you being overqualified, but I too would not write internship on here. I think it's best to position you as junior level candidacy. No need to describe that you're still in academia looking for an internship.
Okay.
Going through your case study, you're doing a lot of cool stuff here. You clearly have assets to demonstrate and show. When I'm looking at case studies, I'm looking to solve or answer 3 different questions. Question number 1 is, what's the problem you try to solve? Number 2 is, how did you go about solving that problem? Number 3 is, how did you validate success that the problem was solved? And you are doing the first couple of these correctly, though the order here is a little interesting. So as I'm scanning through your case study, I'm looking at your titles and I'm trying to depict the story that you're attempting to tell. And I don't know that I'm quite grasping it. So you've got a lot of sections correct. The hurdle is they're not being described. So like, let's see, quantitative research shows redundancy is a section that Tim would see if you scroll down slightly, but Tim's working on some stuff I see. Quantitative research shows redundancy. This title is okay, but it feels a little bit like a checkbox, as in, I need to have a section for research, blah, blah, blah. So instead, what you could say is, with a goal of telling the story through your titles, you could express the problem you're trying to solve in this title. And I don't know what that problem is, but if I read this real fast, this revealed that many started their journey promoting their business online in independent websites before switching over to OpenGym. So this title could be something like, why users didn't know which gym to choose, or something along those lines. So you're telling the story a little bit, and then the solution, understanding that, is the research that you've done. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Also, I think I wanted to say like quantitative research because because of like the lack of time for like real user research, it was just kind of like me looking at like the clients we had and like the information we had with them. So I think I was trying to point towards that, like the reality with the fact that the reality with the current clients is that they did have like sites before they started like onboarding with OpenGym.
I'm not sure I'm fully understanding. It sounds like you have a hesitation in some fashion, but I don't know if am I comprehending it.
I think it's the fact that I was using research of the past clients to understand what this problem is, and it wasn't coming towards like traditional user research, like asking or like researching their user flow.
Yeah. So this is the circle back to a conversation we had 45 minutes ago with a different user. So what you're describing, I think, is, you mentioned the word real research. Quantitative research is very real and very valuable. So both qualitative and quantitative researchers, whatever the plural of research is, both qualitative and quantitative are two halves of the same coin. They are two halves of the same coin, two sides of the same coin. What I'm trying to say is both are super valuable and paramount to understanding a particular problem. Quantitative research alone is still great, and every UX process will always take some research over no research. You're welcome to talk about that constraint in your case study here. You can say like, hey, getting access to users was costly and time consuming, and we need to publish this outcome within a 2-week period. Therefore, we relied on quantitative evidence to determine what solution we had to build with the objective of validating that the problem has been solved afterward. Like, you could tell that story, and that's a perfectly reasonable story to tell.
Okay.
Yep. I would say when you said we didn't do real research, there was a heckle in my mouth immediately about like research is real. You did this real thing. We have a problem as humans where we like to judge things, and we've been primed recently as in our social context to like measure things as either real or false, like organic food versus non-organic food, or AI versus non-AI. All these things about, is something real or is it fake? Was it in this concept of like, can something that exists be not real? If it does exist, is it somehow not real? Which is like such a weird, just a quandary that I think about. You can see my biochemistry background really showing that. But
Tim's
in this regard,
metaphysics.
Yeah. I'm thinking that as I look at this, I would like to see actually more here. I think that this is an okay heading. I think Nate said the opposite, but maybe I'll offer a different point of view. I think this is an okay heading if, under the condition, you spend more time talking about it. If you were to say this is your hook, and now you're going to explain this in greater detail, and you talk more about it here and add more context, then I think this heading is now, it's a story hook. If you're not going to talk about it though, and you kind of brush over it this way that you brush over it here, this is weak sauce because you're trying to give me the summary version, and the summary is not going to cut it here. So that's my sense on that. But I do like this idea that you're like quantitative research, so something that I associate with design. So you can do this skill, redundancy, which sounds like a problem. So you're outlining that, hey, my process showed problems. And that is valuable, is someone who can find problems. But more valuable than finding problems is finding solutions. And you'll see here that you have this problem. Basically, you're saying there's a problem, and then you're saying here's a solution in summary form. I just don't think you don't have to. You don't. Wow, that is left aligned, just as you said it would be. There we go. I fixed it. The worst way possible fix. But you can spend more time talking about this, right? You can spend more time kind of outlining this, and then prove to me that you solved the problem by talking about your results. If you have results or outcomes, I'm assuming you must have like some sense of like this either worked or didn't work. This would be the perfect time to now prove that you're in fact the greatest design intern who ever lived, one of the greatest of all times, because you found a problem, you qualified this problem, you're proving it's a real problem, you're solving this problem through a very sophisticated AI tool that speeds up and leads to a good benefit. And then now you're going to tell me, by the way, this was super successful, and you've set up the perfect storytelling right there. So I'm missing this right here, is this impact or this outcome section.
I think that's the part that I don't really have, because like it got developed, and then like I kind of ended my internship, and the CEO said, "Oh, hey, when we like put this like when we publish this to the actual website, I'll let you know." And then he never let me know. He never let us know. So it's difficult because I don't know how successful it is, because it never got like completely pushed.
Then Thalia, I am going to show you a super secret thing at the end of this stream. Then I've been working on a project, and I will help you write some of this if you'll help me test this project that I'm working on.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's fucking do it. And anyone else who wants to stick around to see this project I've been working on can also stick around, by the way. But we don't have time to do it right now. We're gonna have to move forward. But I've got a cool thing that I think will be very interesting in the after hours today. So
Awesome.
I too am looking at the clock. Do you feel like there's certainly more to talk about here? In regard to priorities, I think we've talked about the big ones. How do you feel about your takeaway so far? Do you feel like you've got some stuff to work on? Oh, they've taken off. So I guess the answer is yes.
they're ready. They're fully ready. They're amazingly ready. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Well, hey, pleasure talking with you. Appreciate the time. Next up, we've got Aliyu,
see you later,
a common visitor. Aliyu, where are you at? Put your hand up in the air.
Well, I gotta find them. I actually don't see them as up next. I'm seeing Aaron.
Ariane.
Aliyu's,
I think Ariane mentioned in the chat they had to take off.
Okay, then it is in fact Aliyu. Aliyu, get yourself up here.
I see him typing.
Sorry, my house is so loud today, guys. It's a vibe.
Actually, we don't hear much of it. It's doing great.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. Hello.
Hello, Tim. Hello, Nate. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, man. Glad to talk with you again.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I'm back again with my problems, guys. Sorry to.
Let's do it. What do you want to take a look at?
So yeah, I think a couple of weeks ago, I was together with Nate, with regards to my resume. So looked through the resume and he gave me some pointers on how best I can be able to improve the resume. I can't exactly remember what he told me, but I think it was about the wording of my, I think, experience or something, you know. So yeah,
And
which I
before
did.
Tim
And
opens it, you're okay opening the resume on stream?
absolutely okay. You know, you guys can do your magic.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we chatted. This was when I was solo, I think. And I'm so sorry the live stream
Yeah, it was
crashed, so
when
you don't have the
yeah.
ability to go back and review it.
Yeah, exactly.
You should put
I
your
don't know if it's
resume
helpful.
in your navigation bar, by the way.
Okay.
Resumes are a high friction point for people. And if you make someone look for something that's high friction, the reality of them clicking it is going to be pretty low. So a lot of recruiters,
Alright.
if you remember recruiters, like a true recruiter, right? So like someone who's recruiting for other people, they don't have the ability to judge your design skills, but they do have the ability to look at a resume of bullet points and say, does this fit the job description that we're looking at? And so if they show up on your website, chances are they're looking for your resume. So don't make them hunt for it. Otherwise, they might just skip you. So
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that feedback. Aliyu, if it's helpful at all, I do have a recording of that session from a couple of weeks ago where the stream crashed. It's audio only, but if that has value for you, happy to send along that unlisted video. In the meantime, let's take a look at this now, and then hopefully we can outdate that.
Okay, so remember, your resume is going to be basically parsed by a couple different groups. One, the biggest one is the ATS, the robot gods. And then the second one is probably going to be a recruiter. And then third, possibly, could be a HR representative from your organization, right? So, and those are all different audiences, right? So a recruiter might natively come across your resume. They might find it on LinkedIn. They might look at it. And so they're coming into it kind of blind. The ATS system is probably you've applied to a job and now they're looking at you. So you've told them a little bit about yourself. And if it's an HR level person, they've probably looked at your portfolio. You might even be an interview or two deep. So kind of appealing to all three of those categories at the same time can be a challenge. And we don't hold it against anyone who has a hard time kind of doing that. But I am immediately worried by the all caps here at the top, because all caps information is actually harder for users to understand and digest. And
Hey, Tim,
oftentimes
hold the phone real fast. The resume that you're looking at is not the resume I'm looking at. Aliyu, did I look at a cached version? Is this the new one?
Yeah, this is the new one, I think. The one Tim is looking at, I think it's the new one.
Got it. I think I have to refresh
Yeah,
then.
I
All right,
think
carry
you're
on.
looking
Tim.
at the cached one. Yeah.
So I'm immediately concerned just because this makes it harder to read. And I'm not, without saying too much, I do think your name is maybe a little bit non-standard for most English speakers, especially over on the state side. I'm not sure if that's where you're looking for a role, but having a name that's all caps will make comprehension of that word decrease. And so this will already make you a little bit harder to remember if you're not careful about this. So I would actually not all caps this. Monospace also is really good for technical spaces and for flourish. And having a flair for the dramatic is probably not what you want your resume to be doing. So if you do use that, just keep in mind that this also increases the amount of space that words take on a page, which will in turn mean you fit less on your page. It also might make it harder for people to scan your page because monospace has a tendency to be judicial about its spacing for code editors, where each letter might have equal weight, but humans don't actually give each letter equal weight. We scan and we parse, right? And so we go through things really quickly, and having monospace might actually force us to slow down and miss certain things that could be reached a little bit faster. So in this regard, I do think monospace may be a deterrent. Except with the ATS system is going to read monospace probably just fine.
Yeah, gotcha.
Nate, did you have any feedback that you gave last time that you're not seeing applied here that you want to give before I maybe tread that ground again?
I don't think so. I was about to complain about the skill section being first still, but now that I've refreshed, it looks like you've taken care of that.
Including some
And we're
good
looking
AI
at 2
skills,
pages.
some good AI stuff here too. That's probably high yield, actually. We should all go update our tool sections to include things like Lovable and Replit.
Yeah, I too have qualms with the typeface chosen. The monospace is the wrong call for this particular thing, but you've already talked about that. I shouldn't say wrong call. Wrong is subjective. Monospace types are inefficient at space consumption and legibility.
Sure.
Aliyu, do you want to mostly do Webflow design?
Actually, I've been applying for jobs, dozens of jobs, but unfortunately, I haven't been getting like substantial interviews, as I was expecting to be having. And because of that, it made me to start thinking maybe I should somehow diversify myself a bit, to also have some Webflow projects, on my website, on the portfolio website, because I think Webflow is something that I'm fairly, good at it, and I have some, conceptual website, which I use to create for a project, Webflow project. I'm thinking of maybe uploading them on the portfolio website. Maybe, it could somehow increase my, value. I don't know. I'm still debating on it. I'm open to, ideas and advice on how best I can be able to approach this. But
Yeah,
Webflow is
so
something
I'm going to offer this feedback. Take it or leave it as you would. I think I'm seeing a split here on your portfolio of you were trying to position as a full-time person. This is like a corporate level role, right? Like a company, product designer, UX, UI designer. This is like a full-time role versus Webflow, which is a productized service. And you don't typically productize service hire for full-time roles. So I'm actually seeing, I think that this is a competing profile that you're presenting to me here. And if I was hiring a product designer, a UX designer, this is what I want to see, product designer, UX, UI designer. And then as soon as I see Webflow enthusiast, I immediately demote or change this context to Webflow designer, which I think will be a great disservice if you are applying to a product designer or a UX designer role. If I was looking for freelance work, if you were applying to freelancers or etc., I think you're going to be in a position where putting Webflow as a productized service is a smart thing to do. Because when you're looking for freelance contracts, if I was an owner or a founder person and I want something very specifically, I have a good idea of what I want, and this is good for projects. I would just watch out for that. So I think you might need to make a second resume. I think you might need a full-time resume. You may need like a freelance resume that focuses on you as a Webflow designer or a web or UX designer who uses Webflow, right? So you attach that as your productized service, but you don't necessarily demote your full-time employment opportunities by making all of your work anchor on one specific tool platform. That I don't think a lot of corporate are looking for specifically for Webflow. I think the amount of work for Webflow inside of a corporate world is maybe smaller than it would be for product or UX design.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
And then if you're looking for full-time employment, Nate maybe can counter this, but if you're looking for full-time employment roles, you want to make sure everything looks like a full-time employment role. And as soon as you say self-employed on your resume, and I'm looking for full-time employment corporate roles, this kind of puts you out of the running. It looks a little bit weird. I would rewrite this to look more like a standard job opportunity or something that is more of like project-based, right? Where you are maybe including design here as like you're still doing corporate type work that people are going to want and not outing yourself as not being part of the corporate world. I don't know. that's kind of word soup, but I'm sure Nate can speak to that a little bit too. He might have an opinion on it.
I don't have a strong opinion on this one. I have opinions on other things, though. Let me talk about 3 other things that I want to talk about. Number 1, you don't currently have a phone number on there, and I don't recall if we talked about that in the past. Was that intentional?
Sorry, can you come again, please?
Yeah, was it intentional? Is it intentional to not have a phone number? Is that just for today's purposes?
No. I have been on the move recently. Yeah, I haven't been exactly in one place. And originally, I'm from Nigeria. And I don't think, for example, maybe potential employee from the United States, or other European country would be interested in calling my number, from the United States, for example, which was the reason why I just omitted the number, because I thought, maybe it was just a subjective, opinion. I thought maybe it wasn't going to provide the best user experience, when, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Here in the States, a phone number would be mandatory.
Happy to hear what's your take on that.
What in the States it would be mandatory. It'd be the method by which anybody would contact you first, most likely, though email would be a high second. You'll have to be the leader here on your cultural norms. And if phone number is not as paramount down there, I'll follow your lead there.
Yeah.
Number 2, the typeface. So one of the quandaries with the typeface is that it takes up and consumes a lot of space. Your resume, despite being 2 pages, doesn't have a whole lot of content. The quandary with this is that because the first filter that your resume goes through is the ATS is attempting to correlate key phrase matching and keyword matching to that of job descriptions. You simply have fewer words to correlate. Other resumes will have an advantage here because they have more words than yours. Not to suggest keyword stuffing, but you got to play the game a little bit, and more words is going to give you an advantage in this market. So the typeface will help with that. Move to a more humanistic type. Oh, I shouldn't say humanistic. That's a typeface. That's a type phrase. Move to a more consumable, legible typeface designed for consumption, and you're going to get a lot more space to write all those key phrases that you're looking to target. How's that sounding? Is that making sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a very interesting take.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to implement that. Yeah.
And then number 3, my final piece here, and probably the most important, is did we last time we talked, did we talk about the what, how, why approach to writing bullets, or the why, how, what approach?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we talked about. Yeah, that was, I think, the main feedback.
Yeah. So this is like the main, as Tim would mock me for saying, the meat and potatoes of, would you mock me for that, Tim, or do you also use that phrase?
Nate, I mock you for other things, but not that one.
Okay. Smart. Well, the content of your bullets are the most important part of your resume. And the current hurdle I'm attempting to solve is that your resume bullets have an opportunity for growth here. So for example, if we look at number 1 here, research and design an app to address mental health problem among Nigerian students. You've got a couple things going for you. One is the English could be semantically improved for that of more native speakers, and I'm very envious of your ability to have multiple languages here, but like running that through an AI to make it sound a little bit more English native would be of assistance there. The main hurdle with it is that it doesn't talk about the reason why somebody would want to hire you, the benefit to the company. So like why did you go about researching and designing an app to address mental health problems? Like what's the problem you're trying to solve? We don't really know, nor do we know like the benefit that it provided the organization that was, or I guess this is self-employed in this case. So we're missing the why. We've got a lot of what's on your bullets, but not a lot of hows and not a lot of whys. Let's scroll down to, so let's scroll down to under Tim. Take a look for the bullet, analyze user adoption. Analyze user adoption data to find friction in the onboarding flow, leading to a redesign that increased feature activation by 34%. That bullet is much better. And I would then flip it and talk about the benefit first. So at the moment, I think this is a what, how, why approach. Analyze user adoption to find friction in onboarding flow. That's what you did. leading to a redesign that increased feature activation by 34%. That's closer toward the why. So we might be missing the how in the middle, but the why is still strong. I would then flip the order of the information and start with led the redesign that increased feature activation by 34% by analyzing user adoption data to find friction in the onboarding flow. So now you're leading with the benefit to the organization, and anybody that skims your resume will see all the benefits and reasons to hire you first. Super impactful. If there's any key takeaway on your resume so far, it would be rewriting your bullets to follow a why, how, what approach, or what, how, why, though I would argue why, how, what is stronger, and I can type that in the chat. So priority number 1, follow a why, how, what approach. Priority number 2, get a new typeface, and we can squeeze a lot more stuff on your resume. How are you feeling about all of that?
Yeah. Team, Ned, I'm feeling like a Superman right now, because this feedback you guys are giving me, yeah, it's giving me this kind of vibe that, yeah, this job is coming, with this, with the implementation of these feedbacks, definitely some interviews are going to start coming my way. Yeah, so thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Do you happen to know already where you're failing in the process, by the way? Like if it is people come to your website, but they don't choose you, or is it at the resume level?
I'm not really sure at the moment because I haven't, connected my website to, Google Search Console. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not pretty sure where the drop off is happening.
Okay. I would recommend maybe figuring something out for you on that. That way you have the opportunity to say, and you could track that, by the way, by saying, I know how many jobs I'm applying to, and I know how many people are coming to my website. And if lots of people, if it's increasing in a proportional way, like if you are applying to roles and you're seeing as you apply to more roles, more people come to your website, and that ratio is pretty consistent, then you know that it's probably people are opening your resume and they're coming to your website, and maybe something on your website's deterring you. Or if you're applying to lots of roles, but the number of people come to your website doesn't really increase by that much, maybe it is your resume. And that will just help you know where to focus and kind of how to improve and what to improve. Additionally, you don't need to do this every time, but if you do apply to a job and they turn you down, you can always ask them for feedback. You might you don't need to do it every time. Like, don't bother them too much. But you can also just be like, hey, do you have like 30 seconds to give me some feedback? And then it's your job to not take that personally. Don't let that define you, but just kind of clock it and be like, okay, that could be a thing someone said, maybe in good faith. I'm not sure. But if you're stuck in that process, if you're stuck in the loop, those are good places to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's solid. For the solid.
Jim, I'm looking at the clock. If we're able to pivot now, we can squeeze one more in. Aliyu, do you feel like you've got some actionables?
Yeah, definitely. I have some solid, feedbacks which ASAP I'm going to implement. Yeah, so yeah, thank you very much for that.
Heck yeah, Aliyu, really appreciate the time. Good talking with you again, man. Always a pleasure catching up.
Yeah, nice talking to you again, too. Nice talking to you.
Cool. Next up, we've got Seema, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, though I'm looking at the chat and they may have taken off. Seema, if you're out there, they've taken off already?
Yeah, they're not in here anymore. Next person who's still in the chat is Unity.
Is it happening?
Check and stab in.
Can you guys hear me?
Not here? Hello.
We can hear you. Hello. My wife just looked over my shoulder and gave you a thumbs up and a nod about your portfolio that she can see.
Thank you.
So good job.
Thank you.
Unity, what do I call you, by the way?
So my name is Unnati, but so many people struggle to just pronounce that. That's why I put it as Unity.
Unity?
Unnati, yeah.
Uneti.
Mhm.
Excellent. Tim and I talked briefly about your portfolio off screen last week when the last time you submitted it, whenever that was, maybe 2 weeks ago. This
Oh, yeah.
portfolio is wild, and I'm excited that we're finally able to see it on screen. Well, give us some context because this one's a little bit different from that of our typical target audience. Tell us more about you and what your goals are.
Sure. So I'm looking for PM roles, but I don't want basic PM roles. I want customer-centric PM roles. And I've also been a product designer in my undergrad for like a little while. And I've also been a game developer. So I wanted to put some elements of all of these things that I've done in my portfolio. And I've also done a little bit of graphic designing, 2-3 months of it. So I wanted to design all these elements from scratch in Illustrator and then like animate it. So what my question from you guys is, so I'm looking for typical PM roles way more than designer roles. So I do have a concern that my portfolio might be overly creative or interactive. So that is discounting the fact that I am serious about PM roles.
When you say the letters PM, you're targeting product manager or project manager?
Product.
Product manager. Nuances between those for the folks in the chat. Happy to talk more about that. This portfolio is fascinating.
I think, yeah. So I think what you just said is kind of like the biggest feedback is your portfolio is currently built for the wrong audience based on what you're looking for. However, and so we could critique this as a design portfolio, which is what it seems to be targeted for right now, but that's not the audience that you're looking for. So where do we go from here? Should we talk about what a good PM portfolio looks like, or should we talk about how to change this to look like a good PM website?
Well, let's knowing the target audience of this chat, let's talk about the PM role real fast. And Unati, feel free. Unati, am I saying it right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, great. Unati, feel free to challenge or iterate my definition here for the chat as you see fit. So a product management role is a role that typically one finds mostly in enterprise scale environments. They are typically iterative in nature, usually following some flavor of agile, whether it be, there's lots of different flavors of agile. So the notable difference is that project management typically deals with a waterfall more workflow, whereas product management typically deals more with organizing individual product teams in an agile context environment. Unati, any challenges with any of that definition?
No, I think you were pretty solid. Yeah, I think that's pretty solid.
So what we're looking at here is the motivations of a product manager aren't that of design. It's very specifically toward management. This is a person that runs and leads an entire product team with a goal of solving business problems. They don't know what the solution looks like. They don't even know what the outcomes they're looking to strive for just yet are. These are like, hey, we have this core business functionality problem that we need to solve for. I'm going to assign a product manager to lead a product team towards solving this particular thing. So with all of that said, it begs the question of, does a product manager need a portfolio? And in my experience, it's real unusual to see one with a portfolio. Let me just straight up ask you, what's the problem you were trying to solve with a portfolio?
That's a great question. So basically what I think of as a product manager, I've done a PM internship back at Tinder for summer. So what I basically did was acting as an intersection between business, technology, and also engineering. But so many PMs I've seen, they are like design focused PMs, business focused PMs, and like technically focused PMs. So I lean more onto the design focused part of the job. And in my internship too, there was a lot of design decisions that I had to take. And there was a lot of, wireframing, a lot of using Figma as a tool. So I'm focusing more on those kind of design roles in the PM sector as well. That's why my major focus was designing a portfolio so that I can show that I can also brainstorm solutions and can also ideate it and show visually how they would look.
This is interesting. Let me repeat that back to you. I'm hearing that in your experience, you are working within product teams that typically haven't solved the role of designer, and then you are backfilling the skill set in that product team. Is that sounding right?
Yeah, so basically like thinking about design from a business perspective as well. And also like the technical parts of it. So acting as a bridge between the engineering team, the design team, and the business teams as well.
I'm posting in the chat an image in the chat for the folks who are unfamiliar with it. Oh my God, it's transparent, so it's barely legible. But this is an example of here. Let me just do this. I'll just take a screenshot of the thing. This is an example of what a product team could potentially look like, and the organizational context by which Unati is attempting to solve for. We can continue talking about the theory here, but I want to focus back on the portfolio. And the truth is, I don't know how to judge it. Knowing that your goals are more design facilitation, part of my brain is thinking, well, this is already solved by other roles within most organizations. And it also begs the question of like the formation by which the teams are structured. I get the feeling you are targeting a real niche of corporate enterprise structure. And you probably know more about that structure than I do. Is that sounding right to you?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So maybe I can give an example of what a design question would what a PM question would look like for like to generalize it more for our audience as well. So the last design question I got in an interview was to design an ATM for blind people. So that's a product management question. You have to think for why you want to design a product such as that, aligning to the vision of your company, and then how you would go about designing it, and also how you would go about system designing it. So basically, talking about the business aspects of your product, and then moving on to the design part, which is empathizing with our users, and then the whole user research part, and then actually telling you how you would design it, like where you would place every ATM component, how would you design it, like would it be more verbal, would it be like focused on Alexa and Siri for the blind people or elderly people, and then going on how to design the system part, that is how the algorithms would look like, how the data structures inside it would look like. And
Is
in
that
my role,
is that a PM role or is that a product designer role?
yeah, so all of my PM questions were these type of questions.
That sounds like a product designer role, not a PM role.
I'm
I
also
agree with-
focusing on product designer roles, but my major focus would be PM roles.
Well, so I agree with Tim here. What you're describing sounds like a design role, but what I think I'm comprehending is that you fit within an organization that's both agile and centralized. As in the design team, there is a design team within the organization, but the designers aren't embedded on individual product teams. They are their own like department of designers. So when you, what's the word I could use here? When you borrow one of their designers for your project, it's more about telling them what to do than it is about them doing the discovery. You're looking for more like UI designers than you are that of product design.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That is, I mean, it's one heck of a niche. So there's like, it's not only is it a niche, how does one target that in a portfolio?
Outcomes, anchor by your outcomes. So when you're talking about like a product management role, there are two things I'm thinking about, which is ownership. A PM has a lot of ownership. They need to own everything.
Yeah.
But there's also the word of that just went away from my brain. It was just in my brain. Oh my goodness. It's when you delegation. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
A PM is the king or queen of delegation and ownership. They own everything and they delegate everything because they own everything. And so if I was going to hire a PM, I'm looking for someone who can show me that they've owned their results, that they've owned team outcomes, but they've also delegated that work and they're intelligent about when to delegate, when to take on things. Your current portfolio is a lot of visual design with a very text heavy section in here. There's a lot of things to talk about on your side from the designer perspective. But from a project management perspective, I don't see any of the things I'd be looking for a PM.
Okay.
Which is I'm missing those outcomes, like the sense of ownership of like, I owned this outcome and here's how I delegated and led a team through that to reach that outcome.
Right.
I just don't see that. That's what I'd be looking for. Now, if you're aiming for the product, so I also see that you have product management here. And what's in a name? A rose by any other name is still a rose, right? So a product designer, even if they don't call it a product designer role, maybe they're like, it's the product designer manager or product design manager. That might still be actually a product designer role. And that product designer does a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, where they basically go from business objective to research to creating something to handing it off and then iterating until the outcome has been reached. That's like the life cycle for product designers. And if you want to position yourself as a product designer, having these visuals is strong because it shows you that you can create the visual artifacts that support the outcomes and the strategy that you're trying to own as well. And so I actually think most product designers can actually be pretty good PMs as long as they know how to delegate. Which is what I think the project manager is really good at doing, is the delegation aspect of it. So,
hey, when you're applying for roles, do people want to see your portfolio? Do they care?
In a couple of roles, it just depends on company to company. With big tech roles, I do see that they have like a section to add your portfolio links or even like PDF portfolios. But there's recently been a buzz about a new role that has been added, which is associate product builder that comes inside product management as well, which requires a portfolio.
Interesting. So that you have an example of a PM role that requires a portfolio. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so that's why I was confused. Like, I wanted to build a portfolio specifically for that role, and that's why I built this.
Whew. I mean, people scoff about making resumes that are custom tailored to job descriptions. You're creating a portfolio custom tailored to a job description? Oh boy.
It's pretty cool. So what I would focus in is for a future portfolio, whether you want to keep this in your back pocket because you're like, I made this, so I want to keep it. And maybe you beautiful. You just change the address to something like /playground or /creative, right? So it still exists, but you don't get rid of it. If you were going to start kind of from fresh, I am looking for something that doesn't necessarily communicate your word. So when you think about this, if you go to any website, right? Or actually, we'll go to Airtable. Airtable sells a service, right? If you go to any standard website, that's the login. I need their marketing. Take me to your marketing website. Most websites don't put their name right in the front. They put the outcome that the user wants. So they're trying to predict what the user wants. If you're aiming for this project management role or design outcome roles, you should try to anchor on the outcome that you think that they're looking for. So yours could be like leading product teams to X, Y, Z things. And then you have your name on here, right? So it is obviously still you, but you don't need to sell your name. You don't need to sell your name right up at the front, right? Because this name, first of all, this is so big that it is a little bit hard to see your name fully. But it's also not doing a lot of storytelling because it's like a person. So I guess this is like a person website, but it's not telling me about your skills right away. So that's one thing. And if you're going for the project management role, aim for those kind of outcomes that you're hoping to achieve as a PM. Focusing on those product designs. You explained your niche really well to us on the stream. So just make sure you communicate that value. And then I would want to scroll down and I'd want to see essentially your case studies, which could just be links out to the websites with a very simple description of the work that you've done. For a PM, I'm thinking
it's kind of text heavy on this side as well.
Yeah. So as a PM role, I'm actually not expecting to like, oh, click on Tinder and then see your Tinder designs. I'm expecting for you to say like, during this time period, which you have here. So from here to here, I owned this work here at Tinder. Right. And so you can do that. So you can just do a short description of it. There's a guy named what is his name? Let me see if I can find his name really quickly. There's a guy who I'm not saying he has the greatest portfolio. Don't misunderstand me when I share this. But he is someone who I saw years ago who did this really, really well. And let me see if I can find him. Might be kind of hard to find.
While Tim is looking for that, we don't get to talk about the theory of like organizational environments and constraints that frequently. So if anybody on the chat is interested in learning more about this kind of stuff, a couple of things I would recommend. One is the book Org Design for Design Orgs. Talks deeply about it. There's a link in the chat for anybody that wants to learn more about the structure of things. And then number two, if your goal is to learn more about Agile, all kinds of potential conversation topics there. Unadi, do you have any recommendations in regard to PM learnings?
So there's a YouTube channel called Exponent, and they do it pretty well.
Cool. Yeah, typed in the chat.
I found him. Okay. This person is one of those people who you look at their thing, it's all text. Look at how much text is on this website. I would never recommend to anyone that they do this, except for them. This is one of the ways that they do storytelling, and this is part of their marketing thing. And so they're being disruptive here. And I think they've actually changed the website. They looked up, but right here, you can see they are promoting themselves. These are their case studies. These are just the companies they've worked at, right? And so they're saying, here's a brief summary relevant to other markets. So they're saying Series A startup, I've worked there. It's a B2B developer tool. Here are the outcomes that he owned for that thing. And then you can go ahead and check out their website, right? That's what I'd be expecting for a project manager or someone else who's like deep in this like big C-suite area where you're making decisions, not designs. You need to own the outcomes. You need to be able to talk about them. So this is what I'd be looking for, something like this. And if you want to apply your design skills, you can kind of do some of the stuff to show cool stuff that you're doing. You don't necessarily need to have a whole like web page for each of these case studies, though.
Okay. Yeah.
Bunani, I'm looking at the clock. I don't know if we provided any value for you. How are you feeling?
No, this was actually really helpful. I have made a lot of notes in my head to how to go forward changing the portfolio according to PM roles. And it was really helpful, actually.
Yeah, the product management role is really interesting in enterprise environments. And being a generalist, it sounds like you've got a lot of generalistic skill sets. You're probably, I don't know what the opposite of T-shaped is. Is there another phrase beyond T-shaped that's like more horizontally natured? You know it by any chance?
I don't know anything formal for it, no.
Well, whatever that word is, that is an accommodation that's well suited for that of a generalistic product management role. In enterprise environments, that's a huge benefit. And you're doing a lot of cool stuff. Your portfolio is currently beautiful. I don't know if it helps you at all, but I love it.
Thank you.
There's feedback I have for some of your stuff in here, but it's not relevant for you. So Thanks for sharing your time with us today, and we're happy to see things. If you want to build that PM portfolio and then share it with us, we'd be happy to review it with you as well. I'm not a PM expert, but I am a product designer, and so I share a lot of overlap with you in terms of understanding and explaining results. But I'll preface by saying I'm not a product manager, so.
It kind of feels like a startup crowd, like some environment where the design is the main constraint and bottleneck of an organization. It kind of feels like, Unadi, would you be comfortable in a small startup, high agile crowd?
Yeah, I'm actually looking for, as my entry level first role, I'm actually looking for startups to work in a startup.
Okay. Yeah. The many hats will be in your favor there. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time seeing where I mean, you need in my opinion, you need a big org for that to really become super distinct. But good luck with finding startups that have that level of differentiation between management and design to need that level role. So good luck there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think that is all the time we have today.
Well, Tim, not to whatever the phrase is. You promised us a secret at the end of this.
I did promise a secret, and we'll do it once the stream has ended. We'll do it off YouTube stream.
Off stream?
Off YouTube stream. But on Discord stream. This is a Discord exclusive.
Oh gosh. I guess I'll push a button. Let's see.
Everyone, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the work that you're doing. We really want everyone to be successful, like truly. And there's no reason for us to not share what we know to help you, and for you also to be comfortable talking with us about stuff. So if you have feedback from today, if you liked how it worked or you didn't like how it worked, feel free to let us know. Feel free to come again in the future. Yeah. So I think that's it.
Yeah, and Tim and I are gonna stick around for the YouTube outro here. We do this every Friday at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you show up early, feel free to stick your resume, portfolio, some sort of design artifact link in the chat. Happy to take a look at it and invite you up on stage. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. Thanks for sticking around as long as you did. For the Discord folk, link to our YouTube channel in the chat. All of the videos, all of the live streams that we've done. Yeah, since figuring out the technology, they're all located there. Feel free to look through them. You can look at old portfolio reviews, and then also any content that Tim and I make along the way will be published there as well. And with that, Tim, I'm going to hit the offline button, and then we can talk about secret stuff.